Please be seated. The Secretary will read the first order of the day.
Consideration of budgetary review and recommendation report of Portfolio Committee on Basic Education on Department of Basic Education.
I now recognize the Honorable the Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
Thank you, Speaker. I move that the report be adopted.
Are there any objections?
Speaker,
Yes, Honorable.
EFF has
Member.
an objection and would like to make a declaration.
A declaration has been asked for, and therefore I will allow Honorable King, who's already in the waiting bench.
Speaker, I'm standing here for the 78% of grade 4 learners who cannot read with comprehension, the child who's preparing for exams without a textbook, for the teachers and learners who do not have a safe school environment for teaching and learning to continue, and for the 3,898 schools still with pit latrine toilets. 24 years later, the outcome of our education system is a generation that is largely not equipped to find jobs and will add to our unemployment crisis. With the curriculum system testing memory instead of intellect, I think the point is made. Despite 6.4% spend on education, South Africa's primary education system was ranked 126th out of 138 countries. The department's response to this abysmal state of education is not to raise the education standards, but to lower it. Politics of the ANC demand that the number passing look good in the short term, regardless of the long-term consequences for families and the economy. 3.68 billion rand of the education infrastructure grant was unspent for 2011 to 2017. And more importantly, the unspent amount of 30% of the total grant allocation implies that there is enough money available in the system to address historical backlogs in the infrastructure. The Department of Basic Education should get the basics of education, as in the Western Cape Education Department, where year on year they receive clean audits. It is not rocket science. Create clear norms and standards for management and resources. Have stringent penalties in place. Minimize political and union interference, and make certain the curriculum prepares learners for the world of work. Parliament really needs to keep the department in check properly, instead of just expressing concerns or noting challenges. The Department of Basic Education needs to get its act together and not sugarcoat the facts. Education is a constitutional right and the best possible vehicle to empower South Africans and develop our country. I thank you. Vote yay.
The Honorable Yako.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Possibly the greatest crime the ANC has committed in its 24 years of being in government has been the failures in basic education. I will be using the Eastern Cape, where I come from, as an example of why I say this. But before I start, I just want to make it clear that every stat I'm about to quote comes from the Department of Basic Education. So in reality, the numbers that are probably much worse. In the Eastern Cape, there are 4,472 teaching vacancies. There are 205 schools built from inappropriate materials like mud and wood, and makeshift crates called desks. There are 25 schools without any sanitation, not even pit toilets. There are 105 schools without electricity. There are 4,734 schools without computers in 2018. 3,778 schools without internet in 2018, and a backlog of 307 special schools. And when we talk about special schools, we need to make sure that we're not talking about special schools, but schools for children who are disadvantaged mentally. This is just one province. Organizations like Equal Education have to take the Department of Basic Education to court constantly so that they deliver and stick to their deadlines. But in violation of the court orders, they continue to miss these deadlines and refuse to fulfill their constitutional obligations. So it is clear that the ANC does not care about children. It steals money meant to build schools, and it deploys incompetent cadres in positions in the various education departments, collapsing capacity to deliver basic services. The ANC has failed the children of this country, and by failing our children, you have condemned our future. And this we can never forgive. So therefore, the EFF will not support this BRRR. Thank you.
The Honorable Esther Reason.
On a point of order, Speaker.
What's the point of order?
Speaker, it's very demoralizing to speak to the BRRR of a
Point of order,
department led
Speaker.
by
Point of order,
a
Speaker.
minister, and yet the minister is not
Speaker,
here.
point of order. Which rule is the
Can we
honourable member
get-
standing up on, please?
Can we get the
Which
whereabouts
rule?
of the minister, please?
Honorable,
Which rule is the honourable member standing up on?
Honorable Mente.
Sit down, Chief. Please, stop that thing.
What rule
We have
are
not
they
been
standing up on?
recognized by the
Honourable
speaker
members.
here. Why are you talking? We have not been recognized.
Honorable Gadi, I also
Which
have not
rule are they
recognized
standing
you.
up on?
I also have not recognized you, Honorable Gadi. Honorable Mente, you know that the practice is to say what rule you are getting up on. I know it's a point of order, but remember that you should also quote the rule on which you are standing. Honorable Mente, that you are demoralized and what is going wrong, really, let's note it, correct it. Let's allow Honorable Esther Reason to make his declaration.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I deliver this BRRR on behalf of my colleague, the Honourable Ngwezi. This government has the responsibility of providing the children of South Africa with sound education, which will equip them to lead successful lives of citizens, positively contributing to the betterment of themselves, their families, and the nation. Basic education is the foundational building block upon which the very future of success or failure in any country lies. Yet in South Africa, it is beset with corruption, maladministration, ineffective service delivery, and held hostage on occasion by certain teacher trade unions such as SATU. This comes all at the expensive and opportunity cost of the learners, most of which at primary school level are still on semi-illiterate. South Africa has massive youth unemployment and almost debilitating skills shortage, which is still at rapid feed. Why is this? From where I'm standing, it's apparent that the principal reasons are from our basic education system is severely compromised on all levels and is inefficient and high dropout rates at substandard teaching, and many no school fees complained about not receiving government financial support on time. The basic education system is in dire need of entire overhaul. The IFP supports South African learners and therefore supports this BRRR in the hope that it will positively affect the much needed turnaround strategy that's required in this department. Thank you.
The Honorable Sheikh Imam.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. When I saw you walk in, I thought there was a little schoolgirl there. I didn't realize that you've gone so much younger. Honorable Speaker, the National Freedom Party welcomes the report tabled here today. But allow me to express my concerns, Honorable Chairperson. We have reiterated in this House, even the SCD program does not seem to be bearing the fruit of the labor. What has actually happened, Honorable Chairperson, we appear to be setting up structures, and every structure that we seem to be putting in place seems to be failing us. And let me give you an ideal example, and for that purpose, I'm going to deviate. I had the opportunity of visiting a school in Den Haag on Friday. And I must admit, what I saw was shocking. There are up to 76 learners in one classroom. No sanitation, no water. The toilets are being cleaned by the learners and the teachers. They are using park homes. In 2006, they were number 1 for a new school to be built. They are now number 12, 18 years later. No ventilation. A child studying science comes to me and says, "Sir, look at this textbook. It's 2012 and we are in 2018. There are no computer rooms. Food nutrition is not arriving on time. The roofs are damaged. Cattle walk the school premises while the children are in their classrooms. There is absolutely no security. They have done everything, spoken to national, provincial, the district, and everybody. Absolutely nobody is doing anything about it. Now that is the state of education. Are we then surprised that today you don't need to know 70% of your work to be able to pass? Can you imagine the quality of doctorates and honors that we are getting today? I think the time has come to deal with this, and that is why I say again, the 3-tier system does not work. The provincial department should be disbanded.
Expired.
Thank you.
The Honorable Njaisa.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. It is in accordance with Section 5 of the Money Bills Amendment Procedures and Related Matters Act number 9 of 2009 that our committee has considered this report. The necessary procedures have been followed for the purpose of producing this report. Basic education has got important targets for 2030, including improved retention of learners and improved learning outcomes. Also, it is important to note that the strategic goals of Department of Basic Education in 2017-2018 are connected to the 2014-2019 MTSF and the action plan. According to SONA, Madam Speaker, 2017, 2.6 billion was allocated to school infrastructure backlogs grant, commonly known as IPID. Having received this big amount, the incidents like those of young learners falling into old pit toilets should have been avoided. It is also unfortunate that there are many of the recurring challenges that we thought would have been sorted out. Challenges like the underspending of the ICT program, irregular expenditure, and fruitless and wasteful expenditure. However, the fast-track plans to improve performance in respect of these targets have been set for infrastructure and have been drawn up by the Department of Education. The allocated budget of 22.9 billion for 2017 and 2018 should be used effectively by the provinces, as the big amount now is always transferred to provinces, which is about 82% of the budget. We accept the recommendations by Auditor General South Africa, as these will improve the performance of the Department of Basic Education. Deputy Speaker, the National School Nutrition Program is doing well. Funds have been well spent. So this
Honorable
need to be
Njaisa, your
congratulated.
time is expired.
Thank you very much.
The Honorable Macheke.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The United Democratic Movement welcomes the Constitutional Court granted on the 29th October 2018 in favor of the equal education against the department. Whilst we acknowledge the substance of the court ruling is not about any wrongdoing on the part of the department, however, it is important that the department is compelled to fix all the loopholes in the relevant legislation and that it meets all the deadlines for the completion of schools' infrastructure. The slow delivery pace, irregular and fruitless and wasteful expenditure, as well as this disturbing underspending in the ICT infrastructure programs is a cause for great concern and a clarion call for urgency. The fact that 24 years into democracy, There are still learners who go to the bush to relieve themselves is rather disgusting. All schools in South Africa must, with immediate effect, meet the agreed to basic minimum standards and safety. There can be no effective learning and teaching in circumstances where school buildings are posing a danger to both learners and teachers. We hope that the Council of Education in its meeting would have appreciated the guidance from the highest court of the land and accordingly would have considered convening an urgent session with all the relevant government agencies and entities responsible for school infrastructure so as to facilitate the development and adoption of a comprehensive and integrated strategy and the implementation plan with clear timelines. Finally, internally, the department must, as a matter of legislative dictate, improve its internal controls, enforce consequence management, and always observe the provisions of the supply chain management. We support the report and looking forward to a sense of urgency in addressing these weaknesses. I thank you.
The Honorable Carter.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, it was our founding president that said, and I quote, "Education is the great engine of personal development. It is through education that the daughter of a peasant can become a doctor, that the son of a mine worker can become the head of a mine, that a child of a farm worker can become the president of a great nation," unquote. Speaker, education is key to breaking the shackles of our past and the ravages of poverty and inequality, pivotal in achieving our national development objective. Unlike other socio-economic rights enshrined in the Bill of Rights, the right to basic education should, according to our Constitution, be immediately realizable. As such, it must be prioritized by government. Yet, despite spending the most globally as a percentage of GDP on education, government fails in its constitutional obligation, fails our youth, particularly those from poor and marginalized communities, and condemns them to a life of joblessness, poverty, and despair. We note with concern the regression in the department's audit opinion, the resistance of SARTU and many educators and principals alike to embrace reforms to measure and improve their skills, competence, and performance. The failure of a CD infrastructure program to deliver, and the maladministration, corrupted governance, and misappropriation of funds by provincial education departments, and the inability of a department to stop this rot and looting. As the Congress of the People, we once again express our grave concern at the inability and failure of government to deliver upon a most basic and fundamental right. Thank you.
The Honorable Gina.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. The Portfolio Committee, we have welcomed the report from Basic Education, and we have noted with great concern some of the areas where the department needs to take care of, like the issues of infrastructure, where we are saying, as one of the recommendations, that the minister and the department must make sure that when it comes to the issues of infrastructure, eradication of poor sanitation and what school, that is one area where they need to concentrate even further. But also, we acknowledge the achievements that the department has come up with, and I'm proud to stand here today, Honorable Speaker, to say it is a fact that education prior 1994, we have never reached the stage where we are. There's so much that we have achieved now in education, but we need also to balance what is happening in the provinces. If we'll still continue to have the provinces that do not perform well, where we still continue to have provinces that when it comes to issues of transformation, they resist, like what happened in one of the schools in the Western Cape called Rustenburg, where a black teacher, for the first time when we talk of transformation, they will chase that teacher on the basis of the color. That is what we are addressing. It needs to be addressed when it comes to education in the country. When we have provinces, when it comes to the introduction of African languages for the safe of cohesion in the country, we find such provinces are resisting. Those are the things that we need to deal with when it comes to education. But through the recommendations that we have come up with as a committee in education, we have talked to the minister, the issues of ASIDI, the issues of infrastructure, because that is where the education, our department is not performing well. That is where we have been promised as to say the minister is going to take care of that. And we want to thank the president of the country for the quick intervention when it comes to the issues of the sanitation backlog, the manner that he has interjected on that, and the manner the private sector is coming on board to make sure that they pump up money so that by the end of 2020, when it comes to the dignity given to our learners at school, the issues of sanitation will be the issues of the past. So we really encourage the department to keep up the good work. For the first time in 2018, we are going to be seated for South African Sign Language. That is a huge achievement that we are saying to show that this is one department and this is one government that is taking care of all the learners that are there in the country. So we are going to be playing our oversight, making sure that where there are shortcomings within the department, we are there as the portfolio committee to make sure that they deliver. Thank you very much, Speaker.
We have come to the end of declarations. I put the motion again. Are there any objections? There are objections, honorable members, and therefore I now put the question. Those in favor will say aye. And those against, no. I think the ayes have it.
Madam Speaker, the DA calls for division. Thank you.
The DA has called for a division. I would like the bells to be rung for 5 minutes.
Point of order, Slalo. Point of...
Zisakhali insimbi, Mama.
10 minutes now. 5 minutes is over now. Must close the door.
Honorable Speaker, kanti umam Khawula uyasazi isingisi.
I've
Kwaze
just
kwakuhle.
discovered also. Suke edlala ngathi. I would like to remind honorable members that they may only vote from their allocated seats. When requested to do so, members must simply indicate their vote by pressing the appropriate button. If a member inadvertently presses the wrong button, then the member may thereafter press the correct button. The last button pressed is the one that will be recorded as the member's vote when the voting session is closed by the chair. Order, honorable members, the question, let me first check whether all honorable members are in their allocated seats. Okay, voting will now commence. The question before the House is that the budgetary review and recommendation report of the Portfolio Committee on Basic Education on the Department of Basic Education be agreed to. Now, those in favor of the report should press yes. Those against, press no. And those wishing to abstain, abstain. Press the abstain button. Have all members voted? Thank you. The voting session is now closed. Oh, I see there are some desks where the voting mechanism didn't work well. Can the staff, table staff, please assist in those cases? I'm relieved to learn from the table staff that even when your system is not working, the voting system is independent and it records anyway. So stay calm.
Point of order, Honorable Speaker.
Yes.
Isn't it time we did something about Honorable Sleko? His thing never works. This is going on and on and on.
We shall note that.
Point of order, Slalo.
Yes, Makaul.
Ayisangathi funa ukuhlangahlangu la, ayisebenzi nezami lana.
Okay.
Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker.
Yes.
I'm this side on the right. I shall not allow my member to be harassed by Honorable Imam like that, please. His thing will work very soon.
That is noted. Honorable members, I am ready to announce the results of the voting. Abstain, 0. No, 70. Yes. It was 153 because I can confirm that Honorable Tleko's thing didn't work. So we added 1, and therefore the yes is 154. And therefore the report has been agreed to.
Sorry, Slalo Samomohle. Awuvumuhle Jesu amkulezi insuku hayi. Slalo. Ngiyabonga. Somlomo.
Yes, Mama Kaun.
Uyabona ibhlungu lento eyenzakalayo ukuthi abantu into zabo engasebenzi. Inyanga zikhona abahamba abantu bayochatha izinto zabo isebenza ngiyabonga.
Le Makaulo uzoba advisor ngaphandle mase siqedile thina la. The secretary will read the second order.
Consideration of budgetary review and recommendation report of Portfolio Committee on Labor.
I now recognize the Honorable the Chief Whip.
Thank you, Speaker. I move that the report be adopted.
The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections? Honorable Mente objects.
The DA objects, but we would like to make a declaration. Thank you.
The DA objects and would like to make a declaration, and I call upon the Honorable Bagrain.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. The Department of Labour has failed South Africa. We are almost 10 million people unemployed. The various interventions of the department are similar to rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. Unfortunately, the high-level report has condemned all our labour legislation, which not only has acted as a handbrake to job creation, but has also sent such a negative message to the business community that the retrenchments are now at an all-time high. The department has the unfortunate reputation of a negative experience whenever a claim has to be lodged. We have had 20 years of non-delivery with no end in sight. The Democratic Alliance does not accept the report. Minister, you have failed the unemployed, you have failed the youth, and you have certainly failed the business community. Thank you.
The Honorable Tembekwayo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The EFF rejects the budgetary review and the recommendations of the Portfolio Committee on Labour. South Africa is on the verge of a major labour and unemployment disaster, and nothing has been done by the Department of Labour. A question we ought to be asking ourselves, therefore, is why are we unable to hold on to the jobs we have at the moment? Other than the structural impediments to job creation and economic growth, characterized in the main by the monopolization of key industries critical for growth by a few people, the very nature of racialized capital monopolizing the South African economy is such that it has built over the years an impeccable ability to exploit cheap black labor. When this labor is no longer amendable to slave wages and demands a living wage, captains of industries are only too quick to replace homebodies with machine. As a result, black labor is easily dispensable. One of the most urgent interventions needed now is an enactment of a Job Protection Act to protect existing jobs and not to make it easy for capital to just retrench people. When capital is caught in a cesspool of its own creation, workers have to pay the price. This cannot be allowed to happen unabated any longer. Over and above the need to create and sustain new jobs, there is an urgent need to protect the jobs we currently have. This, we believe, must be done through putting legislative measures in place to protect existing jobs. It must not be easy for mining companies such as Anglo to milk our mineral resources dry, super exploit African labor, pay them slave wages, and then just decide to pack and go, leaving behind a trail of destruction behind. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Esther Raisin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Department of Labour and its constitutionally mandated duties must create, maintain and enforce decent employment, labour standards, protection of fundamental rights of the labour force in the workplace by ensuring employer compliance with South African labour legislation. Yet there are many instances, some of which have been brought to the attention of myself and other members of the IFP caucus, where this is simply not the case. Employers, and especially foreign-owned employers, are in many instances trampling on the basic conditions of the Employment Act by making employment sign unlawful employment contracts with unreasonable restraints of trade clauses and then subjecting them to atrocious working conditions. And when these employees decide to finally leave such workplace, say on the grounds of a constructive dismissal, they are then subjected to a lengthy CCMA conciliation and arbitration processes, whilst being unable to work because of existing restraints of trade clauses, which causes them to default on their mortgage loans and other financial obligations, as they cannot work due to the period of restraint for fear of legal action being commenced against them. What are you doing to protect South African labour force from some kind of employee abuse? The IFP supports the BRRR.
The Honourable Madisha.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. At the outset, the Congress of the People expresses its grave concern with regard to the Compensation Commission obtaining yet another disclaimer, its fifth in a row, despite attempts to turn it around. It is unconscionable that an entity set up in law to consider and provide compensation for occupational injuries and diseases sustained in the workplace is riddled by fraud, corruption, and inabilities to deliver upon its mandate. We also wish to commiserate with the families and colleagues of the firefighters who lost their lives, gallantly fighting the Bank of Lisbon ablaze. Had the prescript of our occupational health and safety regime, for which the Department of Labour is ultimately responsible, been applied and enforced, this tragedy would surely have been averted. One shudders to think how many other government workplaces are just as non-compliant. Whilst we note that the department itself obtained an unqualified audit, one must question whether the department is delivering upon its mandate. The vision of the Department of Labour is to, and I quote, strive for a labour market which is conducive to investment, economic growth, employment creation, and decent work. Whilst we appreciate the work done by the department in addressing inequality and discrimination in the workplace and in promoting union and worker rights, we ask, have we got the balance right? Is our labor market conducive to economic growth and job creation? Our sickening and escalating unemployment rates shout out a clear no. The current unemployment rate in South Africa is beyond 40%, but government insists that only 27% of the population is unemployed. The problem is much more dire than has been given forth and cannot change with the current dispensation. This government has and continues to fail. The working class and the poor of our country are in trouble. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Mwabe.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The NFP supports the BRRR of the Portfolio Committee of Labour as presented. However, Honorable Speaker, we note the observations of the committee that the Auditor General found that effective steps were not taken by the department to prevent irregular expenditure amounting to almost 1.2 million. And also that the Auditor General found that effective steps were not taken by the department to prevent fruitless and wasteful expenditure amounting to further 4 million rand. We view this as a very negligent act by the department. It can't be corrected that such a bad habit cannot be attended to by those in position of authority within the department. We therefore support the committee recommendations that incidents of irregular expenditure and fruitless, wasteful expenditure be fully investigated, and officials who are found to have flouted regulations be dealt with timeously. We also share on the observation, on the view of the committee, that the funding of the CCMA be made available to enable it to fully implement its statutory obligations in terms of the National Minimum Wage, the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, and the Labour Relations Act. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Van Schalkwyk.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. The ANC supports the report. And I want to stand here and confirm to the people out there that indeed the working class and the poor are in safe hands of the caring ANC government, and the results are there. We can't blame people if they don't want to see what's going on around them, but we are there to see it. The compensation fund's turnaround plans are yielding results with far lesser matters of concerns now than previous years. Those members who are part of the committee can contest to that, although Honorable Madisha doesn't want to agree to that, that indeed we are coming a long way in terms of the mess that was there in terms of the compensation fund, but we've dealt with it through the turnaround solutions and increase the services to our people. Non-adherence to occupational health and safety regulations in terms of government buildings, but also in terms of private institutions, is a point of concern to the committee. And we want to urge people out there, the employers, to adhere to occupational health and safety regulations to ensure the safety of our workers in their workplaces. We are concerned about the under-expenditure on the allocated budget, especially in terms of the vacancies that hasn't been filled. However, we share the same comment in terms of the unemployment rate, but we need to realize also that there are a notably increase in terms of the year-on-year employment figures that has just been released by states, and we need to acknowledge that. We also have to acknowledge the proposals by the recent Job Summit, as well as the investment conference, which will assist in mitigating the unemployment challenges. Continuous UIF interventions also creates job opportunities for young people, and we cannot force the person to see what they don't want to see. Therefore, the ANC supports this report. I thank you.
Honorable members, we've come to the end of declarations. I now put the question again. Are there any objections? I see Honorable Mente indicating that there's an objection from the EFF, and therefore the objection will be noted. The Honorable The Honorable Waters has something to
Speaker?
say.
We do object, but shouldn't you put the question first? And then
Just proceed to say that you do object in yes.
does object, and we do call for division. If you, thank you.
A division having been called for, honorable members, the bells will be rung for 3 minutes. Honorable members, the bells have finished ringing and have been locked. And I would now like to remind honorable members to make sure they are in their allocated seats. Honorable members, remember you indicate your vote by pressing the appropriate button. If you press the wrong button by mistake, just press a correct one. The machine will record the last one recorded. Honorable members, the question before the House is that the budgetary review and recommendation report of the Portfolio Committee on Labor be agreed to. Now voting will commence. Those in favor of the report, press yes. Those against, press no. Those wishing to abstain, press the abstain button. Has everybody voted? Voting has now been closed. There's something, I see in Tleko's hand out there. Honorable members, the results are as follows. There are no abstentions. There were 66 noes and 149 yes. And therefore, the report has been agreed to. The Secretary will read the third order of the day.
Consideration of budgetary review and recommendation report of Portfolio Committee on Police, on Independent Police Investigative Directorate.
I now recognize the Honorable, the Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
Again, thank you, Speaker. I move that the report be adopted.
Are there any objections? The EFF objects. Is the DA saying something?
Speaker, we'd just like a declaration. Thank you.
You are asking for an opportunity for a declaration. The Honorable Kola Barnard.
The SAPS hated the ICD and today it hates the IPID to the extent it's now begun re-investigating cases the IPID has already investigated. It seems to many that the SAPS is in the business of protecting criminal cops. They even exclude the IPID from internal disciplinary processes and then declare the matter closed. For a case, well, you or I may end up in jail having committed. The police want to police themselves, and yet police torture is up 25%. The IPID still sits in the dilapidated City Forum building owned by, wait for it, Roo Shabangu, who holds public works in the palm of his hand. He's doing to them exactly what he did to the then National Police Commissioner Beki Cele. Public Works sits with thousands of empty buildings, I mean the ones they haven't lost, but somehow can't locate a single one for the IPID or even manage to rent one. And indeed, straight after one of their meetings, an IPID member went down, and who should be waiting there but Roo Shabangu, who knew everything that had been said in that meeting and tried to strong-arm her into buying his slum building. Oddly enough, while the lease was declared invalid by the courts, Roo Shabangu is still being paid a huge amount monthly by who? That's the million-dollar question. The IPID is dealing with the police, fraudsters, rapists, and murderers, but couldn't, for example, move on the ever-protected Richard Mluli because intelligence declared the files covering his looting to be a big, fat secret. Talk about state capture. The IPID is coping, but just. And with its predecessor, the IDC, like the predecessor, the ICD, it's underfunded, undermined, and actually with very little it has no option but to choose which cases to take on, which means certain cases fall through the cracks. They work with a bitter knowledge that their top structure was arrested and removed on fake rendition charges, crime intelligence sent in to vet and destroy any cases of cops that needed protecting, and it's cost over 20 million to re-establish what crime intelligence destroyed. That was the work of the then minister and now thankfully ordinary MP Nhleko. This report reflects much, but not necessarily all.
The Honorable Sonti.
Diabonga Speaker. The EFF rejects the budgetary review and recommendation report. On the IPD, the unit has failed in a spectacular fashion to hold the police accountable and to ensure they are tried to their crimes. When our people were protesting for housing at Zwelihle Township, here in the Western Cape, the police responded with brutal force. None of them have been brought to book. In August, police shot and killed a student at the Tshwane University of Technology, unprovoked, without any danger to their lives of any kind. None of those police have been brought to account. What roles does IPD play, therefore, other than the limelight that comes with following politically charged cases? IPD must present the vulnerable and the poor who daily face persecution by police. We reject the BRRR. Thank you.
The Honorable Nkosi Buthelezi.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. It is disheartening to note that steps were not taken against officials within IPID that were responsible for incurring irregular expenditure at this entity. There were absolutely no consequence for this action, and therefore we are once again repeating ourselves. Year after year, there are no action taken against those who are implicated. How do we then turn the tide? Honorable Speaker, this institution is very important in terms of its mandate, which is to conduct independent and impartial investigation on specific criminality committed by members of SAPS and municipal police. Given this mandate, the major oversight role on members of SAPS, we do know that the budget given to this institution is limited, which does not enable the department to meet its obligation. Furthermore, the IFP wishes to express serious concern. While we are pleased with the decrease in the number of cases reported to IPID, there still remain a high number of cases of torture and death as a result of the actions of the police. This certainly does not augur well for the public, as there is an already loss of trust and confidence in the police, and citizens are actually so fearful of the police. This shouldn't be the case in our country, Honorable Chairperson. We need to strengthen the capacity of IP to hold the police accountable and regain the confidence in the police force by the public. The IFP supports the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Sheikh Imam.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. The National Freedom Party notes and support the report tabled here today. Now, allow me to start off, Honorable Chairperson, by highlighting some of the challenges that we seem to find, particularly in IPID. There are some very, very serious allegations that when IPID has its briefings, every forum appears to be present there. Every forum appears to be present, let me reiterate that, when there is briefings at IPID, which is a matter for concern, and I think the matter needs to be looked into. Now, whilst I must agree that there are lots and lots of complaints that are coming from the public in terms of police brutality, but equally I think what we must understand that the police have a responsibility to create a safer environment. And I don't think IPID is making it much easier for police officers. And for that reason, you find police officers are reluctant to actually act. Because for the slightest evidence that appears and where they are protecting themselves, what happens? They have to be charged, they have to be suspended. And it appears that IPID, to a very large extent, have been focusing on certain individuals in the South African police services, and that they are not being impartial in terms of their investigation. I must also add and admit that, yes, indeed, lots and lots of police officers who are responsible for corruption and collusion and police brutality are not being brought to book timeously. And of course, we call on IPID to deal with them, but we are saying that they must be impartial in the way they deal with these matters. The National Freedom Party supports the report tabled here today.
Thank you, Honorable Madisha.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. History will record how much and how our criminal justice system and corrupted to provide immunity from investigation and prosecution for those involved in the capture and looting of the state. In this regard, history will record how IPID and its head came under deliberate, malicious, and fierce attack, including from its then political head, but stood firm. The extent of corruption at senior levels of the police service beggars belief. It represents a major threat to our safety and security as a society and our very national security. If we are to claw back and rebuild public confidence in SAPS and in our criminal justice system, we will need a strengthened, resourced, capacitated, and supported IPID. We welcome the improvement in the audit opinion of the Directorate and hope to see further improvement herein. We express our concern at IPID's underfunding and its need for additional manpower, specifically in relation to investigators. We support the call that to ensure IPID's independence, its funding not to be allocated through SAP's budget. But for now, we support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Madisha. Honorable Mlebatsi.
Honorable House Chairperson, honorable members, the ANC supports the BRRR report on the Independent Police Investigative Directorate. The IPID must execute its duties and responsibilities without fear, favor, or prejudice. The Portfolio Committee on Police recommends the following. The audit action plan must be strengthened and implemented as a matter of priority in order to ensure that the department improve on its audit outcomes in the 2018-2019 financial year. It is further recommended that improvements should not extend over the MTEF period, but prioritized within the next 2 financial years. The Directorate must develop an action plan to improve its financial health, specifically related to the net liability, management of budgetary controls, and cash flow position to ensure the supply are paid within 30 days. The Directorate must review its annual performance indicators and targets to ensure they reflect performance and encourage service delivery. The Directorate should review its performance management system in order to provide accurate and reliable performance information. This is specifically related to the flow-centric system. The ANC is in favor of the accountability and oversight the police sector to ensure that human rights-centered law enforcement culture. IPID must execute this important mandate.
I'm sorry, Honourable Member, your time is up. Order, Honourable Members. I now put the question again. The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there objections? There are objections. I now put the question. Those in favor will say aye. Those against will say no. I think the ayes have it. Do you want me to record your objection?
Please record the objection of the EFF.
Thank you very much. The objection of the EFF has been recorded. The report has been adopted. Now I'll ask the Secretary to read the fourth order.
Consideration of budgetary review and recommendation report of Portfolio Committee on Police on Civilian Secretariat for Police.
I now recognize the Honorable Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
Thank you, House Chair. We move that the report be adopted.
Thank you. The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections? Yes, there are. I've also
There's
noted that there is a call.
Declaration.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. Honorable Mpele, I'm sorry.
Ngiyabonga Sihlalo. The department has experienced a number of improvements in a few performance indicators over the past few years, which is something we do acknowledge and would encourage the continuation of this trend. A key achievement in this regard was the attainment of a clean audit opinion in 2017-18, which was an improvement on the unqualified audit opinion in the previous financial year. A key concern, though, is the underspending in the legislation sub-program, because legislative drafting is a crucial part of the Secretariat's mandates. The fact that it took almost 3 years before the Critical Infrastructure Protection Bill was able to come to the committee after the DA's private members' bill suffered a procedural miscarriage, because it was understood and the committee was convinced that, or at least the ANC members were convinced, that the department's bill was in the pipeline and imminent, is demonstrative of the inadequate capacity for this task within the Secretariat. In addition, the amendments of the IPID Act, as ordered by the Constitutional Court in 2016, ultimately required parliamentary intervention through a committee bill in a rushed chase for that deadline. We need to see an improvement in that regard, otherwise it will be forever and a day before the amendments to the SAPS Act will see the light of day in order to enable professionalization and demilitarization. A key thrust going forward in the short to medium term must be for the Secretariat to flex its muscle, use its oversight and scrutiny powers in order to enforce stronger accountability and ensure that the SAPS do not continue to underperform as they do. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Member Njomani.
The Civilian Secretariat for Police could be a progressive tool in the fight against crime. But like so many things in the ANC-led government, its ability and capacity is limited. One of its key mandates is to deepen public participation in policing, strengthening policing forums in order to ensure that our people cooperate with police in a bid to fight crime countrywide. Crime in South Africa is as much a societal problem as it is in a policing problem. And the Civilian Secretariat for Police is the organization best placed to bridge this gap. But if you go to communities in this country, especially where crime is on a high rise, you see that Secretariat plays no meaningful role at all. In Nyanga, the meta capital of South Africa, People have been crying for something to be done about the high levels of crime in the area, but civilian secretariat availability, dololo. But the department has done nothing in most areas where communities are raising their voice, including Westbury in Gauteng. And the reason why there are so many instances of mob justice in the country is because there is such a large gap between police and ordinary South Africans. And this shows the failure of the civilian secretariat for police. The secretariat is failing to live up to its mandate. And if you want proof, go to speak to the people on the ground. Ask the mothers of the Cape Flats what the civilian secretariat has done in the fight against gangsterism, and you will get answer from those people. The federal structural outlook of this organ,
Order.
where
Honourable
National
Member, your
Directorate
time is up.
has no administrative authority
Order.
over provinces, makes
Honourable
it
Member,
worse.
your time
Therefore,
is up.
EFF rejects
Honourable
this BRRR.
Make.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. The ANC supports the report. It is very clear that it's only under the ANC government that the police were put under scrutiny because of what used to happen. And it's very surprising why people don't support IPID, the Civilian Secretariat, and so on. These institutions were established because of what we used to experience under apartheid. So if anybody doesn't support the report, it gives me an impression that they are nostalgic for the old order, which we would never go back to. And the ANC support the BRRR. Thank you.
Thank you. Order, honourable members. I now put the question again. Are there any objections? Those in favor will say aye. Those against will say no. I think the ayes have it.
Chair, the
Yes,
DA
sir.
calls for division. Thank you.
Thank you. A division having been called, the bells will be rung for 3 minutes. Can the doors be closed? I would like to remind members that they may only vote from their allocated seats. When requested to do so, members must simply indicate their vote by pressing the appropriate button. If a member inadvertently presses the wrong button, the member may thereafter press the correct button. The last button pressed will be recorded as the member's vote when the voting session is closed by the chair. Are all members in their allocated seats? The question before the House is that we approve the budget review and recommendation report of Portfolio Committee on Police on Civilian Secretariat. Though voting will now commence. Those in favor of the report should press the yes button. Those against should press the no button. And those who wish to abstain can press the abstain button. Have all members voted? Can we please note the other members, 3 that I've seen on the right? They have been noted. Thank you very much. Voting is now closed. Honorable Sonto, can you please lessen your voice? Order, honorable members, the results are as follows. Yes, 208. 211, sorry. No, 7. Abstain, 0. The report has been adopted.
Please note the objection of the EFF.
Thank you very much. The votes have already happened, and I've just noted that the chief whips on the opposing side were assuring one another that on this one, we give you a present for the weekend. I'm not sure about the remaining orders, whether that would apply. Can the Secretary read the 5th order of the day?
Consideration of budgetary review and recommendation report of Portfolio Committee on Police on South African Police Services.
I now recognize the Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
Thank you, House Chair. We move that the report be adopted.
Are there any objections? There are objections, and I've also seen the hands for declaration. I now recognize Honorable Mbele.
Ngiyabonga futhi Sihlalo. The depth and extent of dysfunction in the SAPS is utterly dire and little short of a disaster. After years of chronic mismanagement, especially during the Selebi and Piecha years, the police service is simply not up to the task of crime fighting and ensuring public safety. The National Police Commissioner himself admitted as much at the Police Portfolio Committee meeting last Tuesday, when he said that the police's mandate is, quote, impossible to fulfill. The long-standing problems of understaffing, under-resourcing, under-equipping, and under-training at station level are well known and quite
Honorable
evident.
members, can you please lessen your voice? There's too much noise. Thank you. Proceed, Honorable Member. I'm sorry to disturb you.
Thank you, Chair. The problems at station level are well known and quite evident, leading to many stations floundering in neglect and shoddy policing as status quo. What's emerging in great detail over the last year or so against the backdrop of across-the-board state capture is the extent of financial mismanagement and procurement corruption due to supply chain processes being beholden to suppliers or contractors who collude with the cabal in SAP's management to rig tenders. Billions have been misspent with too little bang for buck, and now, with the budget baseline cuts happening, the SAPS has started to shrink. The blame for this crisis lies squarely at the feet of the ANC for its sponsorship of cronyism, of catered deployments that has undermined the professional management of the police service. The only chance this country has for the reduction of crime, for the improvement of the police service to become effective, efficient, and responsive is to boot the ANC out and give the SAPS new political leadership.
Order, Honourable Member Nzomane.
A farmer in KZN loved his sheep, equally the same with his wolf. That one day the farmer decided to keep both his sheep and wolf in one kraal. Early in the morning, the following day, as usual, he woke up to watch his flock of sheep with the wolf and found all his sheep dead and only the wolf was standing. The farmer tried to run back to his house to fetch his gun to kill the wolf. However, the wolf ran faster behind him and killed the farmer as well. This is what happened with ANC after ruling by Justice Squires on the matter State versus Shabir Sheikh. ANC got overpowered by love of Zuma and elevated him to the highest office, and later all hell broke loose, leading to the anarchy facing the country and the nation at large. Our police services find themselves in an uneasy situation as they must first arrest their political bosses who celebrate birthday cakes in Lutuli House as they represent nothing but axis of evil, which has taken our country down the corruption lane. Hence, the assassination of one of the vocal person in a Stina dairy farm who raised corruption that touches on the as Secretary General of the ANC and one member of this House. It will be naive to think that people like Brigadier Kopal in Durban Port, who actually authorized passage of mandrags, of the container full of mandrags, which was later convicted in Walvis Bay, Namibia, with authorization stamp of South Africa, that this brigadier is acting alone. Here we have got a simple case that this brigadier is supported by some people in higher offices. Therefore, as we cannot support fiscal stamping with
your time is up.
Triple R.
Order. Honourable Member, please assist the chair that when you are asked to actually stop your intervention and you yourself can see the time that it has passed, please make sure that you do move out of the podium. Honourable Telesi.
Ngiyabonga kakhulu Somlom. 20,366 murder cases were recorded across the country in 2017-18. On average, 57 people were killed each day. 3,915 women and children were murdered. Over 40,000 rape cases were recorded, and millions of other crimes were committed during this financial year. These chilling stats and the increasing rate of violent crime in our country begs the question if our current tactical, strategic, and prevention system are enough to deter criminals from committing these horrendous crimes. We cannot work in silos in tackling crime. There's a great need for the department to work in a more coordinated way, together with all government departments, to address socio-economic conditions our people find themselves in. SAPS cannot address this issue alone. When our young people cannot find work, millions of South Africans remain unemployed. Many have given up on seeking jobs, thus they are more likely to commit crime, take drugs, and become part of gangs. These individuals are failed by the very system designed to assist our most vulnerable and poor in communities across the country. Honorable Speaker, we would like, would also be able to tackle violence, looting, and arson attack during service delivery protest if and only if government departments, local departments, and provincial administration do their work properly the first time. There will be no need for community members to resort to violent means to have their plea heard. While the SAPS must be held over the call of their exuberance in spending the public money on frivolous items, real crime are taking place and real action needs to be taken for justice and law and order to prevail. The IFP supports the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Honorable Sheikh Imam.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. The National Freedom Party welcomes the report tabled here today. Also allow me to advise you that the National Freedom Party supports the BRR report of the Portfolio Committee on Police tabled here today. Honorable Chairperson, the easiest thing to do is to come here and criticize. And that is what we appear to be doing. Have we ever asked ourselves, why is the situation of crime in South Africa such a serious problem? And one of it is the contributing factors which we seem to forget about. And many of us in this House are responsible for the contributing factors in this country. The special planning, poor housing, no water and sanitation, high unemployment. We talk about corruption, and particularly I see we talk about it in the police force. We're forgetting about corruption. Even in this House there's corruption. Even members in this House are implicated in corruption. So corruption exists in all aspects of governance in South Africa. So let us be mindful of that. I think what we should be doing is working with the men and women in blue. And let me tell you that they have a very difficult task, absolutely difficult under trying conditions. And we cannot paint them all with the same brush. There are many, many good police officers there. But equally, there are challenges. And what are we supposed to do? Is work together with them to find solutions. And I think for the last 4.5 years, all we find in this House is we insult them, we abuse them, we criticize them, but never sit down with them to want to find solutions. And the National Freedom Party believes that the time has come for us as public representatives to put our differences aside and find solutions in the interest of the people of this country.
Thank
the
you
National
very much,
Freedom Party
Honourable
supports
Member.
the report tabled here today.
Honorable Madisa.
Honorable Gwede, what a bad and sorry story to tell. If SAP's BRRR report were a mirror, I would be inclined to ask ANC to hold it up and to have a long, hard look. What they would see is the manifestation of their immorality. It is shameful what the ANC have allowed, facilitated, and been complicit in with respect to the South African Police Service. What transpired amounts in part to treason, organized crime, and corruption. Today, our police service is a mere shadow of its former self. Its former commissioner and CFO currently face criminal charges. Its top management are riddled with appointees whose skills, experience, integrity, and loyalty are questionable. We are still to get to the bottom of how public funds were channeled to repurposed by crime, or repurposed by crime intelligence to manipulate voting at at least 2 ANC national conferences. And whilst shocking beyond belief, it hardly comes as a surprise to learn of the reported involvement of at least 20 of SAP's top management in colluding to reprioritize and siphon millions from the criminal justice system. It's no wonder that last year the head of
Order,
IPID...
Honorable Member, your time is up. Honorable Buchman.
They are taking black bags.
5 minutes.
Thank you, House
Order,
Chair.
Honorable Member, no gestures in the House.
Thank you, House Chairperson, honourable members and fellow South Africans. The ANC supports the report of the Portfolio Committee that was adopted on 17 October 2018. The committee made 16 recommendations focusing on financial management and implementation of the Auditor General's recommendations, steps to deal with criminality in the criminal justice system, as well as the independent review of all high-level contracts prior to approval, and the implementation of a fully fledged combined assurance model within SAPS. Now, House Chairperson, since our last BRRR report in 2017, a new permanent national commissioner was appointed by the SAPS. We have seen in 2018 that the ANC government has been resolute to strengthen the criminal justice system with special reference to SAPS. We will highlight a few matters. The appointment of a new head for the DPCI, the appointment of a new head for crime intelligence and a turnaround strategy, the reintroduction of specialized units and the anti-gang unit that was launched last Friday by the President in Cape Town, the arrest of high-ranking police officers allegedly involved in corruption and tender manipulation, the arrest and successful prosecution of members of the Hawks and SAPS for criminality and corruption, the establishment of a multitask team, including the Hawks, to investigate Steinhoff and VBS. It is quite clear that on a strategic level, the SAPS must contribute to the strengthening of the criminal justice system, the professionalization of SAPS, and the building of a safety using the communities as an integrated approach. A reduction in the number of reported contact crimes and an increase in the proportion of households who are satisfied with police services in the area is a non-negotiable for the ANC. The SAPS need to step up the efforts to deal with organized crime, violent crime, and corruption. In closing,
Thank you, Honourable Member. Your time is up.
The ANC supports this report. Thank you.
Are there any objections to the report being adopted? I now put the question. Those in favor will say aye. Those against will say no. I think the ayes have it.
Chair, the DA calls for division. Thank you.
Order. A division having been called, the bells will be rung for 2 minutes. Can the doors be closed? I'd like to remind members that they may only vote on their allocated seats. When requested to do so, members must simply indicate their vote by pressing the appropriate button. If a member inadvertently presses the wrong button, the member may thereafter press the correct button. The last button pressed will be the one that will be recognized as the member's vote. Order. The question before the House is that the Budget Review and Recommendation Report of Portfolio Committee on Police on South African Police Services be approved. Are all members in their allocated seats? Voting will now commence. Those in favor of the report should press yes button. Those against should press no. And those wishing to abstain must press the abstain button. Have all members voted? Thank you. Voting session is now closed. I'm sure the hands that have been raised on those gadgets that are not working have been noted. Order, honorable members. The Speaker ruled that Honorable Kawula will give consultations outside on anyone who needs consultation on anything. Order. Honorable members, the results of the vote are as follows. Yes, 157, no, 64, and there are no abstentions. The report has been accordingly agreed to. The Secretary will now read the sixth order of the day.
Consideration of budgetary review and recommendation report of Portfolio Committee on Mineral Resources.
Thank you. I now recognize the Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
Thank you, House Chair. We move that the report be adopted by this House. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Are there any objections? Yes, there are objections, as well as Minister of Mineral. There are objections and call for declaration, and I'm sure you'll hear when members present their declarations why they are objecting or why they are agreeing. Thank you. The DA.
Thank you, House Chair. This is a fair report with which we are in general agreement. But there have been other BRRR reports in the past. They contained some good recommendations. But the recommendations were ignored by the department. So what's the point of this process if the department just ignores the Portfolio Committee? Of course, it needs political action to correct this. It needs the political will to make things better, not just to accept the behavior of officials because you're the party in control. But that's not what we've seen so far. This is part of a pattern. We see this across the mineral resources portfolio. Nothing as stark as when we get the official line on the recently passed mining charter. The ANC line on the charter is, it's a great success. Mining companies love it. It'll bring loads of new investment and create new jobs. Unfortunately, this line is far from reality. Why would any change in the law that makes it less profitable to invest bring in new investment? Well, we're told, because the charter's made the rules more certain. Well, A, they're not, because we don't know the rules yet. And B, the major certainty is that the rules are bad and not attractive to investors. Certain big mining companies with existing mines are pouring honey in the minister's ears, and he's spinning it to us. They are just pleased they won't have to close their mines. Of course, the only new mines they will open are outside South Africa. All this new capital that is being promised will just keep current operations going. We don't see it creating many new jobs, and the truth is the mining industry will continue to decline.
Thank you, EFF.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Speaker. As the EFF will reject the budget review and recommendation report of the Portfolio Committee on Mineral Resources. What is shocking is the fact that the recent appointment of Minister Gwede Mantashe, the mining charter drafted by the Chamber of Mines, Big Business and Global Capital, and the misguided intention to withdraw the MPRDA bill that has been in Parliament longer than any bill since the advent of a democracy, has eroded some of the small transformation gains in the mining sector. And this was only possible because the Portfolio Committee have sat and watched as the former ANC constitutional delinquent president refused to sign the bill. We wrote to the Minister of Mineral Resources to ask him on what constitutional or legal basis is he withdrawing the bill. But that was adopted once, not once, but twice by National Assembly. He has not responded because he is fully aware that he's breaking the law. We also want to take this opportunity to welcome the Constitutional Court judgment on the community's right to say no. And we will not montage on mentioning instances such as Kolobeni, where people were bussed in from as far as Icala, and that was called a public participation. It is only through state ownership and control of mines that communities will be fully engaged and participate in mining for the betterment of our people. We cannot continue to own more than 63,000 of 69,000 metric tons of the world's platinum, yet we are the least beneficiary. It must stop, and it must stop now. Thank you.
Thank you, IFP.
Thank you, Jim. Mining, by the definition, declines as resources are extracted. Each kilogram mined is one less available for future mining. Also, as economies develop, mining has to compete for labor and other resources with other industries. The new mining charter that promised to break regulatory logjams that have beset the industries for so long, unfortunately does not deal with all the key obstacles this industry faces. The industry requires clear and certain long-term reliable policy if it's to commit the billions of dollars needed to drive the projects that will have lifespan measured in decades. The charter proposes free equity in projects of 5% for employees and communities. That is
Order, honourable members, can you please lessen your conversation so that they don't drown the speaker? Thank you.
That is a straightforward capital surcharge. It simply translates into a fewer projects that will be bankable and therefore will be less production and also employment. In the past, we had the right mechanism to deliver coordination and planning. The National Development Plan, the NDP, we must recommit ourselves to re-establishing the role of the NDP as a guiding vision for the economy as a whole. The President, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, was one of the architects of the plan. He must ensure that it's placed back in the center of the national policy, and especially in mining. The IP supports the report. Thank you.
Thank you. NFP.
House Chairperson, thank you very much. The mining industry employed in total 450,429 individuals in March 2018, which was a regression to the people it employed in 2017, and there was 462,870. There's been a fall in mining jobs since 2012, a fall of 74,000 jobs. The main focus of the NFP is on the mandate of DMR. That is to promote and regulate the minerals and mining sector for transformation, growth, development, and to ensure that all South Africans derive sustainable benefits from the country's mineral resources. We are aware of the threats that are there: job losses, volatile commodity prices, mounting costs, logistic issues. And DNR, we said, employed almost 500,000 people, men and women, of course, and is responsible for a quarter of export foreign exchange, foreign earnings in our country. Now, Minister, I want to focus on the entities, 5 entities of the department. We need to ask ourselves as to whether these entities are performing their task. For instance, Mintech, which is responsible for research, is it doing enough research development and developing business in the mineral sector and ensuring that the products are used accordingly? Is it doing enough a job for everyone to acquire access into mineral resources? Now, when it comes to Mine Health and Safety Council, the NFP wants to see no fatalities in the mining sector, even if they are reduced, but 1 person dead is too many. There are too many fatalities in the mining sector, and we hope Minister will attend to that. This question needs to be attended to. And I'm sure
Order,
that
Honourable Member, your
Mintech,
time is
working
up.
with the Mining Council, will have to ensure that there are no deaths in the mining
Order.
sector. And those communities within the proximity of
Honourable Kubisa,
are assisted accordingly.
your time is
The
up.
NFP supports the budget. Thank you very much.
Honorable Kubisa, you went much over your time. Honorable Majisha? No.
Analysts warn that our remaining mining production could be halved over the next 5 years if our mineral resources sector is not responsibly managed. We are endowed as a nation with a treasure chest of mineral resources. In terms of our new legislative order, the state now holds custodianship over our mineral resources on behalf of us as a nation. And in return, we as citizens trust that government will exercise its custodianship responsibly and promote the exploitation of our mineral wealth for our benefit and well-being. Chair, this includes our transformation imperatives. The Department of Mineral Resources has in the recent past been one of the better performing departments as far as audit outcomes are concerned. But this is delivered on its responsibilities and mandate. It is delivering upon its vision, which is, and I quote, to enable a globally competitive, sustainable, and meaningfully transformed minerals and mining sector to ensure that all South Africans derive sustainable benefit from the country's mineral wealth. In this regard, we know that the department was targeted in the state capture project and that its power and authority was corrupted and abused, that it abused its custodianship
Order,
over
Honourable
our
Member,
mineral
your time
wealth.
is up. Order,
It has
Honourable
therefore
Member,
failed.
your time is up.
And we therefore cannot support. Thank you.
Thank you. ANC?
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, honorable members, Nagum Chagazi, Obegegleo, Molweni. In accordance with the mandate of the Portfolio Committee, has made the following recommendations. The administrative systems of the DMR should be reviewed and remedial measures instituted to address critical capacity areas that lead to errors and delays in the processing applications and a lack of enforcement of financial provisions for mines. That an above inflation budget allocation be considered along with a specific intervention program to ensure that DMR administration, enforcement, and monitoring systems are integrated and are world-class so that investment in this critical sector can be facilitated and encouraged. That DMR considers interventions to support its wide and essential responsibilities with long-term implications as the custodians of the nation's mineral resource for present and future generations. As part of this new system, the DMR performance measures for SAMRAD should include in the 2019-2020 annual performance plan. This should allow monitoring of the performance of regional offices as well as the administrative database for the rights to minerals as a whole. The annual performance plan should include a formalized report on the work and challenges of the Environmental Mineral Resource Inspectorate. The high quality of mine health and safety reports is a significant aid for performing oversight of the work of the DMR for occupational health and safety on the mines. The same standard for monitoring is required.
Member, your time is up.
We therefore, as the ANC, support this PRRR. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, question was asked whether there are objections to the adoption of the report, and indeed there were, and declarations have been made. I now put the question. Those in favor will say aye. Those against will say no. I think the ayes have it.
Chair, the DA calls for division.
A division having been called, the bells will be rung for 1 minute. Can the doors be closed? I'd like to remind members again that they can only vote on their allocated seats. When requested to do so, members must simply indicate their vote by pressing the appropriate button. If a member inadvertently presses the wrong button, the member may thereafter press the correct button. The last button pressed will be recorded as the member's vote when the voting session is closed by the chair. The question before the House is that the Budget Review and Recommendation Report of Portfolio Committee on Mineral Resources be adopted. Are all members in their allocated seats? Honorable van der Merwe, are you on your allocated seat? Honorable Madisha, can you be in your allocated seat? Order. Those in favor, voting will now commence. Those in favor of the report should press the yes button. Those against should press the no button. Those wishing to abstain should press the abstain button. Have all members voted? The two members whose hands are up on the right, on my right, can you please note their hands? Voting has now been closed. Order, honorable members. The results of the voting are as follows. Yes, 153, no, 63, and there are no abstentions. The report is accordingly agreed to. Order, honorable members. Honorable Tlangwini, I was just about to celebrate you as a new bride and say that, order, we had hoped we were going to get some meat. When I looked at your dress code, I thought, voila, we have a meet this afternoon. But thank you very much and congratulations.
On a point of privilege, Chair.
Hello?
On a point of privilege.
Okay, what's the point of privilege?
Chair, I have been married 3 years to the same man. It was just my traditional ceremony this weekend.
That's precisely what we're recognizing. Order.
On a privilege, Chair.
What is the point of privilege?
Uzoyalwa ubani apha eParliament.
Order, honorable member.
Uzawuyalwa ndim.
Can we now move? Order, honorable members, can we move on the next order in our order paper, which is the motions without notice? Does any member of the ANC wish to give a motion without notice? Yes, honorable member. Order, honorable members, if you are leaving the house, do so quietly.
The African National Congress moves without notice that the House notes with sadness the death of the Royal Eagles soccer head coach, Roger Skakani, in the early hours of Saturday morning, 03 November 2018, at Impangeni Hospital. Understands that the 42-year-old Skakani joined Eagles towards the end of last season and saved the club from relegation. Acknowledges that he has been away from his club for almost 2 months after he has a minor operation. Remembers that 2 seasons ago, Skakani helped promote Thunder Royal Zulu Club to top flight football. Further remembers that in 2011-12, Skakani also propelled Chipa United Football Club to the ABSA Premiership via the playoffs. Recognizes that Roger was a very good coach and had a good eye for talent, as well as proven ability to nurture the talent, and conveys his condolences to his family and the Royal Eagles Football Club. I therefore move.
I now put the motion. Are there any objections? No objections agreed to. Democratic Alliance? Yes, honorable member.
I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that this House notes that Professor Linda Gale Becker, an HIV scientist, was awarded the 2018 Desmond Tutu Award for HIV prevention research and human rights at a conference in Spain. Further notes that the award, which is presented every 2 years, is awarded to an organization or individual that has worked tirelessly to advance HIV prevention research and protection of human rights of people affected with HIV. Notes that Professor Becker was recognized as a tireless and innovative leader of efforts to ensure effective HIV prevention for all. Further notes that in her clinics in the communities of Masipumolele and New Crossroads in Cape Town, as well as her role as CEO of the Tutu HIV Foundation, Becker has fearlessly, and passionately saved many lives and helped break down the stigma and discrimination of HIV patients. And congratulates Professor Becker on her outstanding achievement and recognizes the important role she has played both locally and internationally in protecting the lives and rights of all HIV sufferers. I so move.
Thank you. I now put the motion. Are there any objections? No objections agreed to. EFF?
Thank you, Chair. I hereby rise on behalf of the economic freedom fighters that the House note that this weekend on the 11th of November, the people of Angola will be celebrating 43 years of independence. It was after 14 years of armed resistance against the brutal and barbaric colonial regime of Portugal that the people of Angola were finally able to claim their independence. The Portuguese, like all colonialists, had exploited the resources and people of Angola to enrich themselves while impoverishing the country. But like all colonial rulers, they eventually fell. While African countries like Angola are politically free, neocolonialism has meant that economic freedom still remains a distant dream for the people of Africa. Angola has an abundance of natural resources, but these only benefit a handful of international and local elite, while the people live in poverty. Acknowledge that for this generation of Africans, the struggle is not for political freedom, but for economic freedom and total liberation against white supremacy and institutional racism. Call on the people of Angola to continue the struggle for a truly free and liberated country and continent. Viva economic freedom.
I now put the motion. Are there any objections? No objections agreed to. The ANC. Yes, Honourable Member.
Thank you, Chair. The ANC move without notice on the motion of KwaZulu-Natal School receiving Top Water Conservation Award in London. We know that the rural KZN school has won two top awards at the International Water Conservation Competition in 24 October 2018 for its effort to save water resources. Further note that the Mbovini primaries was representing South Africa at the Water Explore 2018 in London when they received the Innovation and Student Choice Award. Acknowledge that people from 11 participation countries, including Turkey, Germany, and Malta, agree that Mbovini projects were creative. Understand that these projects include turning chip and sweep wrapper, which often end up in local rivers, into eco bricks, which were used to make outdoor furnitures. Recall that the Mbovini was picked to represent South Africa after impressing a panel of judges in August this year. And congratulate the two young learners, Esihle Kasa and Asipile Mkonde, who presented their school project at the event, as well as the team coordinator.
Unfortunately, your time is over, Honourable Member.
So the ANC move.
I now put the motion. Are there any objections? No objections agreed to. IFP.
Thank you very much, Honourable House Chairperson. I hereby move without notice on behalf of the Inkatha Freedom Party that this House notes that SABC staff wore black yesterday as part of a protest action against planned retrenchments at the public broadcaster. Further notes that the protest action was symbolic of staffers mourning the direction the public broadcaster is taking. Understands that the SABC, as part of its turnaround plan, is set to axe a third of its workforce. Further understands that the SABC CEO is on record stating that the struggling public broadcaster is once again hovering on the brink of financial collapse. Calls on all role players to intervene as a matter of urgency to ensure that job losses are averted, that costs are cut at the SABC, especially on excessive executive salaries and bonuses, while thanking all loyal SABC staff members who remain committed to the SABC despite difficult circumstances, thereby ensuring that the SABC is able to execute its public mandate in the public interest. I thank you.
Thank you. I now put the motion. Are there any objections? No objections agreed to. NFP.
I move on behalf of the National Freedom Party that this House notes, I move without notice that this House notes that Mr. Tobani Ndaba, who was the acting director of community services in Umvoti municipality in KwaZulu-Natal, was gunned down by an unknown hitman. Mr. Ndaba was killed with almost 20 bullets of AK-47 while he was in his office, which is not far from the police station of the area. Notes that no one has been arrested for this terrible accident. Notes further that the killing of the municipality officials, as well as councillors in KwaZulu-Natal, seems to be getting out of control. Wherefore, we call upon this House to extend its deepest condolences to the Ndaba family and call upon the law enforcement agencies to work day and night to arrest the perpetrators. Call upon the police department to continue working hard to fight and overcome the scourge of political killings in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. I so move.
I now put the motion. Are there any objections? No objections agreed to. ANC. Yes, Honourable Member.
Thanks, Chair. The ANC learned with great shock that Ms. Nozipho Mthembu, a black African educator who was employed at the Rustenburg Girls Junior School in Cape Town, was forced by both the school management and its SGB to resign.
Nozipho is the daughter of UCT economics professor, Mr. Wittenberg. This move was the result of questions posed over the competency of black educators. A grade 5 learner at the school was heard asking a surprised parent if black educators are real educators. Mr. Mtembu began teaching at the school in January this year, and within a period of 9 months, she was admitted to hospital suffering from stress and anxiety. She says she was coerced into leaving the school by the principal and SGB. In other words, she was racially discriminated against. In early September 2018, she was told by the principal that she should consider resigning. The ANC is disappointed that this matter had to be taken to the CCMA, where Ms. Mtembu has agreed to a settlement reached in her case. In August last year, 3 parents resigned from the school governing body, saying they were alarmed by the way the school blocked transformation. The ANC believes that the Western Cape Education Department lacks the will and is ineffective in addressing racism in Western Cape schools. The ANC moves.
Thank you, Honorable Member, but I think that is a statement, not a motion without notice. So I will not put it because it was not on those that were tabled for the motion. So we will ask if you can contact your whip in that regard. The UDM?
Thank you, House Chair. I move without notice on behalf of the United Democratic Movement that the House notes that the Western Cape High Court reached a guilty verdict of the 3 men who raped and murdered Hannah Cornelius and for the attempted murder of Cheslin Marsh, condemns the gender-based nature of the violence that was evident in the events that led to the death of Hannah Cornelius, and denounces any gender-based attacks on all women, especially young women, sends its well wishes to Cheslin Marsh, the survivor of this brutal and heinous attack, and hopes that he will fully be reintegrated into society, acknowledges that the accused went on a crime spree attacking many other vulnerable women, in which one was robbed of her belongings and another was kidnapped after the murder of Hannah Cornelius, sends its well wishes to all the victims and the families, calls on the appropriate punishment that is equal to the heinous nature of the crime when the sentence is passed down on these individuals, in order to send a clear message to any potential perpetrators of violence and gender-based violence and murder and assault that violence is not acceptable in society, welcomes the verdict by the Western Cape High Court, and congratulates the National Prosecuting Authority on a successful prosecution. I so move.
I now put the question, the motion rather. Are there any objections? No objections, agreed to. FF plus? The Democratic Alliance? Yes, Honourable Member.
Thank you, House Chair. I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that this House notes that the World Economic Forum has invited Professor Barsi van Solms to join its Global Future Council on Cybersecurity. Further notes that Professor van Solms is a research professor at the Academy for Computer Science and Software Engineering at the University of Johannesburg. Also notes that he's also the director at the Center for Cybersecurity at the University of Johannesburg, as well as an associate director of Oxford University's Global Cybersecurity Capacity Center. Recognizes that Professor van Solms is an honorary member and former president of the International Federation for Information Processing, and is also the Vice Chair Africa for the IEEE Special Interest Group on Big Data and Cybersecurity. Notes that he is a fellow of the Computer Society of South Africa, of the British Computer Society, and of the Oxford Martin School at the University of Oxford, as well as a chartered information technology professional and a member of the Academy of Sciences in South Africa, acknowledges the leading role played by Professor van Solms in emphasizing the importance of South African cybersecurity initiatives in a global context, and congratulates Professor van Solms on his appointment to the Global Future Council on Cybersecurity. I so move.
Thank you. I now put the motion. Are there any objections? No objections, agreed to. EFF?
Thank you, Chair. I hereby move on behalf of the Economic Freedom Fighters that the House note that last week, Thursday, 1st November 2018, the United Nations General Assembly voted in favor of ending the economic, commercial, and financial embargo imposed by the United States on Cuba. 189 of the 193 member states of the UN voted in favor of ending these sanctions placed on Cuba by the United States, which have been in force since 1960. The lesson with the General Assembly we must all take is that because its decisions are not enforceable, it's time the world rethink the roles of the UN General Assembly and Security Council and find more democratic means to ensure world peace. The sanctions placed on Cuba are nothing more than economic terrorism against a socialist regime which, through examples, has shown the successes and humanity of a socialism despite all attempts by the most powerful nation on earth to destabilize the regime and the country. Cuba has always shown solidarity with the people of South Africa, and it's time we return the favor and further call on the House to condemn the US sanctions on Cuba and call for the embargo to be immediately lifted.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Your time is up. I now put the motion. Are there any objections? No objections agreed to. The ANC.
The African National Congress moves without notice that the House welcomes the election of the University of Pretoria academic Dr. Thulani Makalanyane to the International Society of Microbial Ecology Board of Directors on the 16th of October 2018. Further notes that Dr. Thulani, who is the senior lecturer in the Department of Biochemistry, Genetics, and Microbiology at University of Pretoria, becomes the first African to be elected to this International Board of Directors. Acknowledges that the 34-year-old Dr. Makalanyane becomes the first African to join the prestigious Board of Directors, taking up a 4-year term. Recognizes that the society, which is based in the Netherlands, hosts the biggest biannual symposia on microbial ecology, with the most recent meeting held in Leipzig, Germany, attended by over 2,300 delegates. Recalls that Dr. Makalanyane also serves on national and international review panels representing South Africa in Department of Science and Technology bilateral discussions, and congratulates him on his latest appointment to the international prestigious global network. I thank you.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. Cope. The ACDP. The ANC. Is there a motion from the ANC?
Sorry, Chair. May I?
Yes, Honourable Swart, are you going to move a motion?
Yes. Thank you, Chair.
Let me allow the ACDP.
Point of order, Chair. Point of order. Absolutely. Chair, I'm here next to you. Point of order.
Aye, Chair.
Our member has
Allow
is
the member
disabled.
No, just calm down. Just
No,
relax.
Chair, no.
No. Who is now objecting here?
I've been raising a hand.
No, I didn't see you, Honourable Member.
Thank you.
No, I'm not skipping you. The ACDP is before the ANC. So we'll do the ACDP and we'll come back to the ANC. The ACDP?
Thank you, Chair. The ACDP will move at the next sitting of the House that the House debates steps necessary to return SARS to the internationally acclaimed position it once held as the best performing government agency in the country.
If there are no objections, I put the motion.
It's not an objection. That is a notice of a motion. We are on motions without notice.
Is it a motion without notice, Honourable Member? Is it? It's not. Then we go to the ANC.
Engineers' ideas spark interest in science in the village. The African National Congress moved without notice that the House note that the Northwest engineers come up with a new way of stimulating young people's interest in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics in his rural village. Further note that Tabiso Kotlaitsile has erected a solar street light that has raised much interest in one of the province's deep rural village called Manza. Understand that the village is about 25 kilometers south of Mahikeng and is one of the poorest in the province. Further understand that the 37-year-old electrical engineer who has been working at ESCOM for 6 years said he wanted to expose people from village to the practical side of maths and science. Recalls that he chose Musikare Secondary School for his solar light, and the school has availed 4 classrooms for Kotlaitsile to turn into a science center. Realizes that Kotlaitsile ideas spark interest in a village where there was no interest in science and technology, and commends Kotlaitsile on his commitment of making his village a science village. I therefore move. Thank you.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. The AIC. Agang. The ANC.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. The African National Congress moved without notice that the House congratulated Travis Melane and Joseph Mdluli for being crowned the winner of the HIP 2B3M Innovation Challenge on Wednesday.
Just switch on your mic.
It's just off. Okay. And note that the 2 high school pupils from Ganyamazane in Pumalanga have successfully developed a prototype robot to help with extinguished fires. Further notes that their prototype robot, which was made out to look like a wired toy car, can be plugged into an electrical socket and be controlled with a cardboard box remote to move around and pick up objects such as a cool drink can. Further notes that the robot is meant to detect people in the building and extinguish class A to F fires and uses dry powder and wet chemicals to stop the fire instead of water. And recalls that the competition was founded in 2002 and is a brainchild of a billionaire businessman, Mark Shuttleworth. Congratulates the 2 people from the ability to make their prototype with a few tools and materials that they had access in to the village, and wishes Joseph Mdluli and Travis Melane a success in their future endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. The APC, the PAC, the DA.
Thank you, House Chair. I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that this House notes that during the 2016-17 financial year, 8 PRASA board members incorrectly received a total of 3 million rand that were not entitled to receive. That there is no plan to ensure that the millions are paid back to the embattled entity, that this violates sections 38C, Roman 1 to 3 of the PFMA of the General Responsibilities of Accounting Authority, which in terms of section 86 justifies criminal proceedings to be instituted. That this is especially disturbing considering that the entity's annual report recently released by the Auditor General's found that 1 billion in fruitless and wasteful expenditure took place. That PRASA's net loss for the previous financial year was 925 million. That PRASA is in shambles and is plagued by scandal after scandal. And that to date the Minister has done nothing to recoup the money and is thus protecting the board members in questions, and calls upon the Minister of Transport, Dr. Bladen Zwande, to immediately implement a plan to ensure that this money is repaid with interest. I thank you.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. The ANC.
Chair, whilst we will not have a problem, I rise just on a point of privilege under 31, Rule 31. We will really appeal that it is helpful to all of us if all motions of this nature are circulated to everybody. This one was not circulated. That is our difficulty.
Yes. Honourable members, can we stick to the agreement in amongst chief whips that these motions are circulated? I'm informed, Honourable Chief Whip, that the motion in fact was previously circulated on the 29th of October. It was not recirculated for today. Right, so but let's just ensure that out of courtesy that we just alert the political parties that the motion that was previously circulated will be considered for a specific day. I don't think there will be any difficulties with that. The ANC.
Thank you, House Chair. The African National Congress move without notice that the House knows with great shock the news of the death of Eunice Kathrada, the nephew of late struggle stalwart Ahmed Kathrada, and his son on Thursday night, the 1st of November 2018. Further notes that the 65-year-old Eunice Kathrada, who was a Muslim cleric, and his 28-year-old son Ahmed were killed after an attempted house robbery in Schweizer-Reneke. Understands that the cleric had just returned home when two people attacked him and he died on the scene whilst Kathrada's grandnephew died in hospital. Deplores the senseless killing of citizens daily due to crime. Applaud the quick action by the police where nine suspects aged between 16 and 60 were arrested and appeared in court today for the murders. Conveys its condolences to the Kathrada family, relatives and friends. I thank you.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. That concludes motions without notice. The next item on the order paper is member statements. Does any member of the ANC wish to make a statement? Honourable Marke.
Thank you, Chairperson. The ANC
Will you just speak into the mic, please?
The ANC welcomes the launch of the anti-gang unit in the crime-ridden Hanover Park in the Cape Flats by President Cyril Ramaphosa on Friday, the 2nd November 2018. This demonstrates the commitment of the ANC government in fighting gangsterism, drugs and guns, which bedeviled and terrorized these communities for years. The anti-gang unit has members from the specialized units and has been in operation from the 8th of October 2018. The deployment of this unit to Hanover Park, Nyanga Cluster, Bontievel and Bishop Levis will assist in weakening the criminal activity of gangs, as well as disrupting the criminal economy linked to gangsterism, drugs and firearm supply lines. The unit will continue to be in full operation in the peninsula area until communities in the Greater Western Cape experience a return to normality. The ANC's policy on safety and security is paramount, and our commitment to ensure the safety and security of the law-abiding citizens in their homes and environments where they live, work and engage in extramural activities must be safeguarded at all times. We call for the community of Hanover Park to mobilize themselves and to report activities of crime and drugs, to make life difficult for criminals to operate in their communities. I thank you.
The Democratic Alliance.
Thank you, Chair. The Solplaatje municipality is in a shambles. Like so many other ANC-run municipalities, it has been pushed to the edge of administrative dysfunction through what appears to be corruption by ANC officials. A Section 106 investigation has found a number of suspicious transactions. These include an Audi Q7 and a fleet of vehicles at a cost of more than 5.5 million rand, which were bought from a company which is not a recognized vehicle dealership. The report reveals the chief financial officer was involved. The report was drawn up after the municipal manager and the CFO were suspended. There was a vote of no confidence in the mayor and he left. 11 rebel ANC councillors who voted with the opposition to elect a new mayor were suspended from the ANC because they did not vote for the candidate approved by the ANC headquarters. The solution is simple. There must be lifestyle audits on all the officials who have been removed. There must be a full investigation of the municipality's finances, and the dissident ANC councillors and their voters must realize that the only way to good government is to reject the ANC and elect the DA.
The EFF.
Ngibonga sihlalo. Sihlalo ngifuna ukwazi ukuthi makuthiwa lendlu alufuneki ubandlululo yini le eyenzeka lapha ya ezweni lethu eSouth Africa. Uma ubheka izindlu ezihlala abantu bakithi impilo abayiphilayo emaplazini bayaxoshwa emhlabeni yokhokho babo. Kumbiwe amathuna emindeni yabo. Kuyimanje kunamalunga omphakathi abulawa yibhunu emadlanzini. Nisho kanjani ukuthi siyafana kodwa akukho noyedwa umlungu onukelwa yindle lapha eCape Town eGugulethu ikwalanga konke lana ayi wena papa nicabanga ukuthi siyakhohlwa kalula njengoba Mandela yena owaphuma ejele wangaba nandaba nomuntu omnyama njengoba namanje sizithola sikulesi simo esikuso senhlupheko. Abantu bakithi baxoshwa emisebenzini bayathukwa babizwa ngawo wonke amagama abanye bahlaliswa nguhulumeni emjondolo ebizwa ngokuthi olindela nalapha bahlala khona abayamnethelwa bahlupheka abanye bayasha. Kuyimanje njengoba ngikhuluma nje lapha yana eThekwini kunemndeni ebihlala kolindela ikhishiwe imeya yakhona uZandile Gumede bahlala ehostela njengoba ngikhuluma nawe imndeni ewu30 yabantu besifazane.
Honorable member, your time is expired.
Ingakho sithi EFF abantu abakhohle uvotele ANC manje.
Honorable member, your time is now expired.
Ngoba sobakhombisa ukuthi kuphathwa kanjani. Sihlawule nawe.
Honorable member, your time is expired. When your time is expired, you must take your seat. The next statement is from the ANC.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. South Africa reaffirms its continued support and solidarity with Cuba by voting with other progressive countries in favor of the resolution calling for the end to the unilateral economic, commercial, and financial blockade. We thus urge the USA government to reconsider its policies towards Cuba. The ANC commends the UN General Assembly for the overwhelming approval resolution condemning the American economic embargo of Cuba. After rejecting proposed USA amendment criticizing the lack of human rights in Cuba on Thursday, the 1st November 2018 at the UN headquarters. The USA had imposed a statutory embargo on Cuba for the past 56 years, and the severe economic and financial restrictions under the embargo continue to stifle the economic and social development of Cuba. The current USA policy towards Cuba under President Donald Trump not only enforces but intensifies the embargo, which ignores the majority support of the international community to the lifting of the embargo and the normalization of Cuba-USA relations. South Africa will continue supporting and stand in solidarity with Cuba for the removal of economic embargo against this country. I thank you, House Chair.
The IFP.
Honorable Chairperson, it is not a secret that the state of public health in many parts of South Africa leaves a lot to be desired. However, a light still needs to be shown onto specific healthcare facilities, in particular public hospitals in greater part of this country, are in a dire need of urgent attention from the government. One such hospital is the Ekombe Hospital in the Nkandla District Municipality. This hospital is quite a sizable one as it serves the areas of Ekuteni, Ungono, Jokweni, Tulwane, and many, and to name but a few. The hospital is in a deployable state and is in dire need of intervention from both the provincial MEC and the national ministers. That is a constant problem regarding the shortage of medication at these facilities. More often than not, patients are left untreated due to these reasons. The hospital also suffers a shortage of employees there are enough doctors. There are not enough doctors and nurses to save the massive number of patients. The doctors are also in a very poor state. There is also a recurring issues of nursing staff only being employed there on a temporary basis and have not been for 15 years, yet externally permanent staff get hired in that in that hospital. The road infrastructure leading up to the hospital also.
Honourable Member, your time is now expired.
Thank you.
Thank you. The Freedom Front Plus.
Geachte voorzitter, die feit dat daar geen skikking tussen Transnet en die Transnet pensionarisse gevind kon word nie en dat die hofsaak nou voortgaan, gaan groot probleme skep. Enerzijds dui daarop dat Transnet geen morele kompas het om hulle beloftes na te kom teenoor hulle bejaardes en verarmde ou werknemers wat die instansie opgebou het nie. Van menseregte is daar geen sprake nie. Die Transnet aangestelde trustees van die pensioenfondse wat nie beklei vir hulle mense nie, moet ook aangespreek word. Daar berus 'n morele plig op Transnet en die trustees om die pensionarisse tegemoet te kom en die beloftes van 'n goeie aftrede uit te voer. Verder het Transnet en die trustees van die fondse die hele land onderhewig gestel aan 'n groot risiko wat groot skade aan die ekonomie kan veroorsaak. Tans is die pensionarisse se eis teen Transnet se waarde meer as 100 miljard rand weens rente wat by die aanvanklike eis van 79 miljard rand oor tyd gevoeg is. Dit kan die land se kredietgradering laat tuimel, rommelstatus veroorsaak en groot skade maak vir die ekonomie. Given the dire prospect, we implore Transnet and the trustees of the funds to go back to the negotiation table and fix this mess. The Transnet pensioners possesses a leverage that can bring the country into dire straits. Responsibility they have to their old erstwhile employees, Transnet and the government needs to act immediately. You've got a moral duty and a legal duty to do so. Stay away from this court case and settle this matter once and for all.
The ANC.
Ngiyabonga sihlalo. Idlulisa lokhu ukhongolose ushaqekile ngesenzo sobandlululo olinyanyisayo esenzeke esikoleni esikhona lapha eKapa ekuthiwa eRustenburg Junior School. Lapho uthisha unkosazana uNozipho Mthembu bemxosha ngenxa yebala lakhe esikoleni salabo abandlebe zikhanya ilanga. Ngoba abanye abazali abamhlophe abafuni ukuthi abantwana babo bafundiswe uthisha onebalela imnyama. Uthisha uNozipho Mthembu wayefunda kuso lesi sikolo esimbandlululayo kumanje. Siyakuncoma ukuthi bakhona abanye abazali abamsupportile. Bamphoqile ukuthi ashiye esikoleni ngenxa yokuthi bamsola ngokuthi abamnyama bakwazi ukufundisa. Usephuma esibhedlela ngenxa yokuthi ubephethwe isifo sengcindezi nokuphatheka kabi. iANC yaligxeka lolu bandlululo olwenziwa kwezinye izikole zaseKapa. Sithi umnyango wezemfundo la eNtshona Koloni mawuthatha izinyathelo abaphathi besikole abanobandlululo kanjalo nebhodi lesikole malimiswe ngokusheshsha. Siyaphakamisa.
The ACDP. The ANC.
Thank you, Chairperson. We welcome, as the ANC, we welcome the launch of the first phase of the revitalized 50 million industrial park held at the Puta Chitaba Multipurpose Center in Kwakwa in the Free State on Tuesday, 30 October 2018. The revitalization of this industrial park will seek to address the unemployment in that province and will increase investment in the ANC urges the Free State Development Corporation to convince other small, medium and micro enterprises to consider setting up shop in the park, thereby helping to reduce the high rate of unemployment in the area. Black industrialists in the province should also seize the opportunities presented to them by the government. Furthermore, it has been announced that 216 million has been set aside for the revitalization of industrial parks, and Puta Chitaba is one of the 5 industrial parks that stand to benefit from the ongoing phases of revitalization. This supports the ANC policy increasing the role of the economic zone incentives in support of job creation. This launch also follows the completion of the first phase of the Botshabela Industrial Park in Free State. I thank you.
The Democratic Alliance.
The ANC government took a policy decision to convert hostels into family units more than 20 years ago.
hostel dwellers of Gleblands in KwaZulu-Natal hope for better living conditions from the ANC, which came across as a caring government. Little did they know that 4 families would be sharing 1 room and a bathroom 24 years into democracy. Little did they know that sewage spills would be a daily occurrence, exposing their children to health hazards. That at least 1 person is murdered on a weekly basis in that hostel. That the hostel has become a hiding place for criminals due to no records of hostel records. The broken windows and collapsed roofs have not been fixed since the storms that swept across KZN in 2017. The Democratic Alliance calls upon the ANC to stop playing lip service to service delivery and be brave enough to go face Gleblands Hostel and face the people it lied to. The ANC needs to introduce honest policing, regulatory controls, and reconstruction. It needs to put money where its mouth is and give hostel residents hope for a better future. The DA, as a party for all South Africans, was there and engaged Gleblands residents. We only wish the ANC would do the same. Thank you.
The EFF.
Thank you, House Chair. In 2012, the Public Sector Bargaining Council ruled that all those employed in the public service as assistant directors must have their salary level upgraded from level 9 to 10. And all deputy directors must have their salary level upgraded from level 11 to 12. However, the Department of Labor decided to only upgrade the salaries of those employed before July 2012, excluding many. In 2014, the Public Sector Bargaining Council reiterated its ruling, but again, the Department of Labor refused to comply. And despite the department's CFO and Director General approving the necessary upgrades and back payments in March of this year, yet till today salaries have not been upgraded and back payments still have not been made. As a result, the affected employees are frustrated, demoralized, and discouraged, and this will no doubt affect the ability of the department to deliver. It is an embarrassment to the Department of Labor because it's failing its employees when it is meant to protect the rights of all laborers in the country. We call on the Minister of Labor to address this matter with urgency and comply with the ruling of the Public Sector Bargaining Council. It should also be noted that this problem is not only limited to the Department of Labor, but to the National Treasury as well. Thank you.
The ANC.
Thanks, Chair. The ANC commends the Gauteng provincial government on the recent official launch of the R158 million D1944 road project near the Ras Divender and Mukombo Nature Reserve, northeast of Tshwane. The 11.5 kilometer tertiary road project entailed the full construction and upgrade of the road from a gravel to a tarred road. The road infrastructure investment underpins the ANC-led government's commitment to stimulating economic development and foster social integration in this region. The increased flow of goods and services along this route will assist in stimulating the local economy as well as integrating agricultural and tourism opportunities with transport corridors. The project shows the commitment by the ANC-led government to provide world-class road infrastructure, enabling new investments and unlocking potential for local and regional economic development. The upgraded road is expected to reduce travel time as well as allowing for safe transportation of people, goods, and services between Gauteng, Limpopo, and Mpumalanga provinces. Thank you, Chair.
The AIC.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. The poor spending on the grant allocation to municipalities, the non-compliance with the Municipal Finance Management Act, and the CFOs that are not qualified for their positions are some of the reasons why many municipalities have failed to deliver services to the people. In the Eastern Cape, more than 64% of municipalities have chief financial officers who do not qualify for their posts. In accordance with the municipal regulations and minimum competence, these CFOs should have been fired within 18 months after their appointments. The requirements for the appointments of CFOs include minimum higher education qualification, the work-related experience, and core managerial and occupational competencies. There are two municipalities in the Eastern Cape, Sakasiso and Sunday River Valley, that did not submit their 2017 and 2018 financial statements to the Auditor General. And these CFOs now should not be blamed alone. The municipal manager should also be blamed for this. The failure to submit final statements is an offense. More than 50% municipalities in Eastern Cape are in the financial distress. And many of these municipalities have incurred irregular
Honourable Member,
expenditures.
your time is now expired.
Thank you, Brother.
The ANC.
Honorable House Chair, the ANC believes the recent official opening of the Ramatlapanma 600 dual-purpose library in Batloong, Bahashole community in Northwest will assist to instill the culture of reading and acquiring knowledge among the community. The library, which will be utilized by learners and community members at large, will also have internet connection and will also be able to be used by virtually impaired residents. The opening of the library is a reminder of the statement by Nelson Mandela when he declared that education is the most powerful weapon which we can use to change the world. The ANC commends the provincial government of Northwest for this development in Batloong. We, however, call upon residents of this area to be vigilant and guard against the demolition of public amenities like libraries when raising community challenges. We need to jealously guard against the destruction of important community properties, such as a library. Government is doing everything in its power to change the lives of our people, and we need to unite and work together in this regard. Let us find progressive ways of raising our grievances and not destroy great legacies. I thank you, Chair.
The DA.
There is a party among us of blood and brutality that only sees red. We have seen it in action in this House, and this week we saw EFF members assaulting MPs, and one of our whips was assaulted. But the violence is not just reserved for us. In August, the city press reported on the case of 2 female members of the EFF who have gone to court alleging physical abuse by male members of the EFF. A junior staff member in Northwest has charged the party deputy chair in the province with threatening to assault and mutilate her. A similar event has happened in Limpopo. Both victims say their party did not take their issue seriously. Mr. Shivamba was also famously seen manhandling a journalist. The EFF may not be a party of the equal opportunity economy, but they certainly are a party of equal opportunity violence. MP or journalist, man or woman, we are all fair game. It stems from the attitude that individuals have no rights to speak the truth, no right not to be beaten up if you reveal the truth about the EFF's fascist nature and its fatal attraction to other people's money. Nobody is safe. 63% of the EFF members who first sat on these benches at the start of the 5th Parliament have been purged. The EFF must answer this for South Africans. If they were to be in government, will it purge and beat up citizens like it has done to the opposition and its own members?
The ANC.
At a point of order,
Yes, Honourable Member, why are you rising?
I'm rising on the word fascist. Rule 92. I'm rising
Order, Honourable Member.
on a point that the member who just spoke to EFF.
Honourable members, honourable members, just calm down. Just
What
calm
rule
down.
is the member standing on?
No, Honourable Waters.
Will you just sit
Honourable
down,
Waters.
Waters?
No, I won't.
Sit down.
Honourable Waters,
Sit
take
down.
your seat, please. Honourable
You
Waters,
must open your
take your
ears.
seat.
You must sit down.
Honourable Waters,
shut up,
please take your
Bonakola
seat.
Barnard.
What rule is on?
Honourable members, honourable members, honourable members, let's just calm down. Just relax. The honourable member is rising on a point of order, and it clearly states that the member may refer to the exec rule or may state what the point of order is about. That's in the rules, Honorable. Yes, you must read, just read the rule. So no, don't shout at me. It won't assist you. Don't shout at me. Let's maintain common decency and not shout at one another. What is the point of order, Honourable Member?
Chair, the member of the DA who just spoke of speculations and things that she doesn't know and lied to the
That's
to the
not
House,
a point of order.
misleading the House.
That's not a
She
point
must
of order.
withdraw
Please take
she
your
must
seat.
withdraw the word fascist.
Take
We
your
are
seat,
not
please.
fascist. She must withdraw that
Take
from
your
the
seat,
racist
please.
party.
Take your seat, please. The
You
reference...
must sit with your racist party and stop calling
Honourable
us
Member,
fascist.
take your seat. Take your seat. The reference has been to a political party. Will you take your seat, Honourable Steenhuisen? The reference has been to a political party and not to any specific member in the House. So it's not a point of order. I want to remind members, in terms of Rule 92, Sub-Rule 3, and I want to read to you very slowly so that you can listen carefully. The member raising the point of order must commence by quoting the exact rule, and it doesn't stop there, or standing order, or at least the principle or subject matter upon which the point of order is based. So shouting and screaming point of order, which rule, it is completely inconsistent with the rules, honorable members, that you yourselves have adopted, and I will apply the rule that way. And I will not be prescribed to force any member to quote the exact rule if that member does not have the exact rule at hand, but we implement it in terms of the rules that are here. We now move to, yes, honorable member.
I rise in terms of Rule 85 of the rules. You may not impute improper motives to a member of parliament. The honourable member, Honourable Mente, said that the Honourable Mgwenya had lied. That is unparliamentary, and she must please withdraw that.
Did you say that, honourable member?
Yeah.
I'm asking the honourable Mente, I'm not asking you. Honourable member?
Now, I said the member must stop, the black member in the white DA, racist DA, must
No,
stop
honourable
lying
member,
and
you are
mislead
out of
the
order
country.
now. Will you withdraw the remark?
She's being used by white
Will
people
you
being a
withdraw?
young
Honourable member, let's not degenerate this now. You must withdraw the remark.
Unfortunately, I won't withdraw.
Then you must leave the House, please.
I will not withdraw.
Will you leave the House? Order, honourable members. The ANC.
Point of order, Slal.
What is the point of order, honourable member?
Thank you very much, Slal. Bengifuna ukwazi ukuthi kwenzakalani nganele ngiphume ngeminyaka ngisazihlukumeze ingane la kwenzakalani bafethu. No. Mustn't do these things.
No, honourable member, you missed the action then.
Chairperson, no.
No, honourable member, there was a point of order that was taken and the honourable member refused
Can you
to withdraw
tell me,
the remark.
explain me what was happened
No,
when I was not here?
I'm not going to do that. There will surely be a highlights package available later on TV
tomorrow,
and you can see that.
Next week, Tuesday.
Thank you.
I need to answer.
Thank you. Honourable member, order. You may continue, honourable member.
The ANC congratulates the Democrats' victory in the House of Representatives in the midterm elections in the United States held on Wednesday, 7 November 2018, and more so the victory of women, as 99 women were elected to the House, recorded a high number of women ever elected before. This number surpassed that of the previous record of 84 in the past elections. The ANC believes that this victory signals the dissatisfaction and rejection of the United States citizens of unprogressive policies especially foreign policy founded on aggression, anti-immigration, and anti-multilateralism, the pursuing of the trade and tariff wars in the quest to make United States great again. The ANC hopes that the Democrats will use the power they have recently acquired in the House of Representatives in a positive way by restoring checks and balances in President Trump's administration. The ANC is of the view that the Democrats will usher the United States into contributing positively to the world agenda of building a better world order characterized by respect for multilateralism, world peace, free trade and stability, global partnerships geared at eradicating global
Honourable Member, your
poverty
time is now
and
expired.
the realization of more equitable global economic system.
Honourable members, that concludes member statements. Are there any ministerial responses? The Honourable Deputy, let me start. The Honourable Minister of Water and Sanitation, the Honourable Minister of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries, the Honourable Deputy Minister of Mineral Resources, the Deputy Minister of Rural Development and Land Reform. No, Honourable Kwankwa, you are not the Deputy Minister. And then also the Honourable Deputy Minister of Economic Development and the Honourable Deputy Minister of Transport. Those are 6 responses. Can we take it in that order, please? Honourable Minister of Water and Sanitation.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Honourable Chair, there are several statements that talk about racism attacking the African National Congress government. There is a statement that talks about destruction of property. I just want to make this comment that, Honourable Chair, we are reaping the bitter-sweet fruits of the democratic success of our country. That is what is happening here. Because the honourable members who are saying all of these things, just can imagine, most of us know you would never be here. They are speaking here in the National Assembly of the Parliament of the Democratic Republic of South Africa. Yet they stand there with some kind of courage to attack even Nelson Mandela. Honourable Chair, I'm talking about those members on the other side who was enjoying the fruits of our democracy. When they look at the legacy of apartheid, because the bitter one of the fruits is the enduring legacy of apartheid. And that is exactly the major success of the African National Congress government. The African National Congress has made us to be here, all of us. It took the National Party government. How many years did it take it? Brutal as it was. We are a democratic government. It's qualitatively different from what the racist apartheid government was, which made sure that Afrikaners particularly, and whites in general, in this country, enjoyed freedom. Whilst the African people in particular, and black people in general, were living in squalor, and that's what is happening today. Look at, Honourable Chair, look at what's happening in the Val.
Honourable Minister, your time is now expired.
I wish I could make that point.
Thank you. Your time is expired.
Sorry.
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries.
Thanks, House Chair. Unfortunately, those who raised these issues have chosen to left. But nonetheless, the answer to the question follows up from what Minister Kuglenkwindi have said, that racism, eviction of people from farms, discrediting of graves, on all those things are not necessary in our country. We need to ensure that our people live in harmony. And for that to happen, we should respect the rights of farm workers. If we are to deal with the legacy of racism and apartheid, we need to understand where we come from. And even those who try to deny that they ever lived in a segregated society of South Africa by the apartheid regime, because today everybody is like an angel, that nobody lived during that period, should shame themselves when they see these things happening. And I believe that even the way we deal with each other in this house reflects of the need for us to grow up and regard each other as human beings who are deployed to this parliament by our people. They want to see in us dignity and where we deal with each other. And I think the opposite side should have a time to talk to each other because they share some of the platform in some of the municipalities. And I wonder why they come and fight in parliament. Thank you, Chairperson.
The Honourable Deputy Minister of Minerals.
Thank you very much, Chair. We note the statement by Idil Akbar Mulder on the Transnet pensions and the court cases that ensue. Clearly, his appeal, we hear what he's saying, will follow up on the matter because no pensioner is supposed to be subjected to long court processes. We do note that within the provident and pension schemes in general, there is a bigger problem of unclaimed benefits, delay in payments. The Financial Services Board is sitting with 45 billion rands of unclaimed benefits, which includes some of the pensions and provident funds, the bulk of it also being for mine workers and ex-mine workers. So we have looked into these matters in general and tried to look into some integrated one-stop service of these benefits that are unclaimed. We do know that even with those, there are teachers, nurses, and policemen and women who are still sitting with us. So we are sitting with a huge level of poverty, whilst there are billions of people who are supposed to benefit from this. On the DA motion that is raised about the Gliblands residents and the squalor that is there, we do know that. Obviously, as a country, we've also done very well in other areas, where we have converted hostels into family units, including also in the mining sector, where a lot of families are in decent human settlements. But having said that, we do acknowledge that we need to do better, and we are going to continue to do that. But the DA also must also not just talk. In Guguletu, in Kualanga, we have a lot of squalor in those hostels as well that are converted. So don't just rush to KwaZulu-Natal whilst your house is burning right here where you govern. Lastly, Chair, the statement...
Your time has now expired,
Thank you very
Honourable
much.
Deputy Minister. Honourable Deputy Minister of Rural Development and Land Reform.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. On the statement by the ANC on the launch of the anti-gang unit, people would appreciate that there were huge banners from the people of Hanover Park, and they were all written, "Thank you, President Ramaphosa." This was a cry from people who have for many years been suffering from crime. They have been suffering instead of getting protection. The provincial government of the Democratic Alliance has been making wild noise about bringing in the Defense Force, which has been a clear vote of no confidence by the DA government on the SAPS. Instead of behaving like the DA provincial government, Minister Bheki Cele has rolled up his sleeves, indicated that the people of Hanover Park are people of South Africa. The people of Hanover Park have been noting those people who during elections rush to them and ask for their votes, but stand aside instead of protecting them. The anti-gang unit is welcome. South African government is part, Hanover Park is part of South Africa, and Minister Cele and the ANC government will ensure that the people of Hanover Park are safe. Thank you.
The Honourable Deputy Minister of Economic Development.
Thank you very much, Chair. The Free State is in the radar screen of the national government because the Free State in itself has got, within the economic profiles of all provinces, is the one that is actually a little bit lower. But in that area, what we have realized is that there is a lot of vibrant SMMEs and cooperatives that are energetic, that are able to identify opportunities in various areas. And the province has given us 5 areas of work that we must work on that they have identified as their economic drive. And the president was there interacting with the people just recently on Monday. And they had pointed out, even the communities have pointed out areas in which we should actually be assisting them. So the opening of the Putadichaba Industrial Park as one of the 11 is answering the outcry that has been raised by these SMMEs and cooperatives on the need for workplaces that they can actually work in terms of their own initiatives. And these 11 identified industrial parks, on average, each one is to employ 5,000 people. So it must be welcomed. It is actually a welcome opportunity, and all of us should be supporting this initiative because it is going to take us a step forward, and more from the province have been identified that they are going to actually build on to allow more and more SMMEs to assist us to develop here. And thank you very much.
The Honourable Deputy Minister of Transport.
No, thank you very much, Chairperson. We note the statement made by the member of IFP on Kombe Hospital. Maybe to mention that we do take note of the fact that he says there's lack of treatment in the hospital. However, I must indicate, Chairperson, that all senior management positions in that hospital are filled, and they are filled by relevant people and experienced people. The nursing service manager is an experienced nurse, the CEO is a doctor, the clinical manager is a doctor, finance person is appointed, and therefore you have top management being appointed at the hospital. I must further mention that this is indeed a hospital that is located in the deep rural areas of KZN, and very old, established in 1876 as the Lutheran Church Mission Hospital, and was only awarded to KZN, or actually handed over to KZN in 1976. And of course, in 1994, it was renovated. We take into account all issues that have been raised, but I think also this hospital recently was accredited for infection control. And you cannot, as a hospital, be accredited for infection control if you don't have the resources for doing so and for controlling infection. I thank you. In fact, lastly, Chair, I think on the matter related to women abuse, I think it is important that we start by referring to the abuse of Mayor Delil, then point fingers at other people.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Minister. That concludes ministerial responses. The last item on the order paper is notices of motion. Does any member of the ANC wish to give a notice of a motion? The ANC.
Thanks, Chair. I move on behalf of the African National Congress that in its next sitting, the House debates active steps to achieve accelerated economic growth, to avoid further downgrades of South Africa's credit rating, and the regaining of an investment grade. Thank you.
The DA.
Thank you, Chair. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, at the next sitting of this House, I shall move that this House debates the role of Venezuela's socialist policies in creating what is arguably one of the world's worst human-caused humanitarian and economic declines in recent times, and the lessons that South Africa can learn from these failures. I thank you.
The EFF is not here. The ANC.
Honourable Chair, the ANC moves that in its next sitting, the House debates strengthening the oversight mechanisms on SOEs to ensure that this sector is properly managed and monitored. I thank you.
The IFP.
Thank you very much, Honourable House Chairperson. On behalf of the Inkatha Freedom Party, I shall move at the next sitting of this House that this House debates the unacceptable and inadequate funding model of the Department of Social Development as it pertains to shelters, which sees shelters for women and children who are victims of abuse going severely and critically underfunded. I so move.
The NFP.
Thank you, Chairperson. I move on behalf of the NFP that on the next sitting of this House, the House debates the ever-increasing number of the unemployed graduates in this country. I so move.
The ANC.
Honorable Chair, I move on behalf of the ANC that in its next sitting, the House debates introduction of a worker empowerment component in the policy framework to massify share ownership among workers and to provide for worker representatives sitting on the boards of companies. I so move.
The UDM.
I move on behalf of United Democratic Movement that the House on its next sitting debates that the state of violence in schools and how they affect teaching and learning processes. I so move.
FF Plus. The DA.
Thank you, Chair. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, at the next sitting of this House, I shall move that this House notes that of the 12 main entities as subdivisions in road, rail, aviation and maritime, 36 board positions are vacant. Further notes that even more disturbing is the concerning new trend of the establishment of so-called interim boards, which undermine due process and legal requirements, and that this House debates reason for the deliberate clumping of boards within the transport sector's national structure. I so move.
The ANC.
Chairperson, I move on behalf of the ANC that in its next sitting, the House debates improvement in the uptake of science, technology and innovation, outputs within government or public sector. I so move.
Go. The ACDP.
Thank you, House Chair. The ACDP will move at the next sitting of the House that the House debates the implications of Chief Justice Mogoeng's statement in the My Vote Counts judgment that, quote, every adult citizen may, in terms of the Constitution, stand as an independent candidate to be elected to municipalities, provincial legislators, or the National Assembly.
The ANC.
Ngiphakamisa ukuthi kulendlu umbuso womthetho ngokulandelayo mayidikide ukubonakaliswa kwe-agenda 2063 yenhlangano yezizwe zase-Afrika ekujuliseni impumelelweni ye-Afrika enokuthula eqhutshwa abantu abamelekelele ngokuhlukahlukana ngezikhondla zemihlaba. Ngiyabonga.
The AIC.
Thank you, Chair. I hereby move on behalf of African Independent Congress that this House in its next meeting debates whether to close down the South African Airways or not. Matter of do or die, to be or not to be.
Achang. The ANC.
I move on behalf of the ANC that in its next sitting, the House debates preservation of indigenous cultures and knowledge systems. I so move.
The APC. The PAC. The DA.
On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, at the next sitting of this House, I shall move that this House debates the establishment of a social protection floor and the relevance of the United Nations Economic and Social Council recommendation that South Africa considers the possibility of introducing a basic income grant, echoing one of the proposals made in the early 2000s by the Committee of Inquiry into a comprehensive social security system for South Africa. I so move.
The ANC. The ANC. If there's no motion from the ANC, it means that we conclude notices of motion and the business for the day, and the House is adjourned.